Alrighty guys, so for today's video, once again, we're doing something a little bit different. For today's video, what I wanted to do is I made a little video where I'm going to bring you along on some of my training, the training that I do for cycling. I wanted to give you a little bit of inside look at how I do this and also just provide some information for people that might be interested in doing the same, or just some insight into kind of my training and how I do things. The video that I have for you, what you're seeing on the screen, I actually put my GoPro up in front of me on my stationary bike, and I've got that connected to a program called Zwift. Zwift is a, what do you call it? I don't know. It's almost like a computer program that connects to my bike. And while you're riding, you can do a variety of things. I'll get into some of the details of this here in a little bit. It'll make a little bit more sense, but I can set the bike to ride at like a steady power, steady resistance, and I can just put a terrain in front of me that is just kind of there for show, or I can actually ride up a mountain or set a bike course that I might want to ride. A lot of these are based on real environments, and the bike will automatically adjust the resistance for me so it feels like I'm riding a real bike. This is honestly what I do the majority of my training on. The reason for that is because it's a controlled environment. When I get out on the road, there's a lot of factors that play into that. Like you're supposed to ride at zone 2, which is like a steady state, low resistance type of riding. You're supposed to do your majority of training at that level. And when I get out on the road, I have a very difficult time keeping my training intensity down at level 2. I tend to ride a lot harder. Plus, when you're riding on the road, there's cars coming and going. You have to make turns. You have to stop and go. When there's cars behind me, I have a hard time riding slow because I like to get up, be out of the way. Generally, when I'm riding on the road, I'm going about 20 to 22 miles an hour, just because I like to not impede traffic too much. But if I were truly to be riding at zone 2, I'd be actually riding about 16, 17 miles an hour. So those are the things that, I don't know why my computer makes that noise. Those are the things that kind of play a factor in my training and why I like to use the indoor trainer as much as possible. So what we're doing today, well, I'll go back just a little bit. Yesterday is when I recorded this video. Today is July the 21st, 2023. Yesterday, the 20th, I actually had every intention of getting outside and doing an outside ride. But it was incredibly humid. There was a cold front moving in. I started getting all these alerts on my phone for hazardous weather rolling in, saying high winds and hail. And when I go out for a ride, I usually do 40 to 50 miles. That's 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours of riding. And I did not want to be, an hour and a half away from home on my bike and start getting hit with 60-mile-an-hour winds and hail. That just does not sound like a good time to me. So I decided to jump on the indoor trainer. Something else I haven't done in a while is test my FTP. Your FTP is your functional total power. What this is I'll go ahead and put up the diagram right here. This is the test, and your FTP, it's hard to kind of describe, but basically what it means is like this is the max amount of effort that you could produce for about an hour worth of time. So if I were to ride maxed out for an hour, they're giving me what my FTP was. If you look at the top of the screen right now, you see the big number that's turning like 135. It goes up to 140. That is my power output. That is my wattage. That is how resistance is and effort is measured while using the stationary bike. So what this is doing is I'm actually doing a ramp test where it started off with a 5-minute free ride where I was just kind of pedaling along, trying to keep warm, or at least warm up my legs. And then once the ramp test really starts to go, it's going to ramp up the resistance. And it increases that resistance, it looks like, by 20-watt intervals every minute. And then you just go for as long as you can until the wattage gets too difficult and you have to stop. On this particular test, I made it like 18 minutes or something like that. I think that's what the total time of the video is. And you'll get to see my functional total power at the end. Now, what you do with that FTP number is that is how you categorize your training rides. You know, you have like your training zones. Zone 1 is like so easy that your heart rate is barely elevated, if any at all. That is zone 1 is like if I'm going on a bike ride with my kids, that'd be a zone 1 ride where I'm barely touching the pedals. A zone 2 ride is where you start to elevate your heart rate, but you can actually still hold a conversation while you're riding. That would be zone 2. Zone 3 would be threshold, where you're pushing the limits a little bit. You can actually ride for like, I can ride threshold for hours, although my heart rate is going to be relatively high and I would not be able to hold a conversation. Zone 4 is a resistance level that I could maybe hold for 10-15 minutes. That's like when you're going up a hill. And then zone 5 would be an all-out sprint where you're going into like in anaerobic mode, where you know you're actually going without oxygen. You're breathing and your circulation is not able to keep up your performance. That is your sprinting, and you can only keep that up for a very short period of time. So when you get your FTP, it will actually set your training zones for you. So if you're doing a sprint training or something like that, you know what numbers you want to achieve. And also kind of, I can set the bike, like right now my zone 2 training is right about 170 watts. So I can set the bike, I can write a program and say, hey, I want to ride at 170 watts for 2.5, 3 hours. And I just get on the bike, start pedaling for 2.5, 3 hours. That's actually going to be like your fat burning zone. That's your main training zone. That's the purpose of doing the FTP test. If I didn't do this test, I wouldn't know where to set the bike. So we're going now. The test is starting to ramp up a little bit. Still not to the point where it's incredibly difficult. I wanted to talk a minute about the bike that I use. As you can see, I'm sitting on my stationary bike right there in front of me. I got the GoPro set up. This is my Garmin Tacx Neo stationary bike. I've got some B-roll that I'm going to put in the background while I talk about it. I don't know. It's a stationary smart bike, and it has a couple fans on the front. It has a space where you can attach a tablet. I'm using a Galaxy 6S Lite tablet, I think it is. It's like a $200 tablet. It's not a big deal. The bikes themselves, fairly expensive. This is similar to like a Peloton bike. Wahoo Kicker is another. There's a bunch of brands. I just happen to use the Garmin bike because I don't know. I thought, for my needs, I thought this was going to be the best one. I like the tablet holder. I like the fans and all that other stuff. I will tell you that the fans on the bike are not strong enough. So something that you can't see off camera is I have a big industrial fan that I got one of those smart adapter, like outlet adapters. So I plug it into a smart adapter, and when I start to get hot, I can break out my phone and actually turn the fan on and off. That comes in very handy when I'm riding the smart bike. But yeah, it's connected to the internet. It's connected to this program. So when I start going up a hill, if I'm riding free, I'm not doing like a training ride. Like if I'm riding up Alpe to Zwift, for instance, I can actually just free ride. So when it's going up a 5% grade, it starts giving me resistance like I'm going up a 5 degree grade. And I have to shift the gears on the bike just like I would with a regular bike. That way you get like the feel that you're riding a real bike up a real mountain. I don't know. I really enjoy this. It's not exactly like riding a real bike, but it's about as close as you can get to riding a real bike. And I don't know. It's a very, very good training tool. So that's what I was doing today. Funny thing about my ride today was, with all pieces of technology, it doesn't work 100% of the time. And this bike with Zwift is no different than that. And I don't know if the combination is, or the problem is with the bike, or it's with my tablet, or it's with the online program. Sometimes I'll get riding, it'll just disconnect. I started the FTP test a couple times and it disconnected, which is fairly uncommon. Usually I can get a couple hours before it disconnects. This particular day I was having all sorts of issues. It stems from, this is all using Bluetooth technology, and devices can only be paired to so many Bluetooth devices at the same time. A little bit it starts to get a little bit technical, but also I wear a heart rate strap, and the heart rate strap will often connect to the bike rather than connecting to the tablet, and that creates an issue. I don't know. I might need to do an update on the bike. I haven't done that for a little while. Another cool thing about this particular bike is that Garmin actually has routes where people will put a camera on their bike and they will sync it up to their Garmin device and they will go for a ride. So it records the elevation and increases in angle of approach and all that kind of stuff with the video. So if I want to kind of do someone else's ride, I can actually use their GPS data, and it'll actually be a video rather than like a cartoon image like what we're seeing now. And I can actually ride like a real road. So if I can ride in like Switzerland, I can ride up a mountain, do that kind of stuff. These bikes are incredibly capable and very interesting. If I could, I want to get back to the ramp test here for just a moment, because this is where things start to get kind of juicy. My most recent FTP test that I completed, actually, it wasn't an FTP test. Another thing that Zwift does when you're free riding, like I ride up mountains occasionally. I'll pick a mountain that'll take about an hour, and I'll start riding up that mountain. When I do that, I'm riding very hard. I won't set it, but I'll have a goal of maintaining a wattage of like 250 to 270 watts while I'm climbing up these like 10-12% grades. When you do that, Zwift, this program that you're looking at, will automatically kind of estimate what it believes your FTP is. My estimated FTP based on my recent rides was 265. So my goal today with this test was to hit 265 watts as an FTP. If you're looking at it now, I'm currently riding at 240 watts, and in less than a minute, it's going to go up to 260 watts. So this is how you know that I'm currently starting to get into that red zone. This is the part where this is getting very difficult, very challenging. I've already I rode for about an hour prior to starting this test again. So I don't know, a little bit depleted, but I really wanted to get this video out and kind of show you what it's like going through this FTP test. So sitting here at 240 watts, about to go up to 260 watts, this is when it starts to get hard. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of the way here in a second, and I'm going to skip ahead to the last 2 minutes of this ramp test. I think I got up to 320 or 340 watts, and I want to be able to play for you the audio as well, because I do have the camera on me and I'm mic'd up just so you can hear what the bike sounds like. You can hear my breathing. You can see what I'm going through when I'm getting to this point where I'm nearly maxed out. I think I successfully maxed out. I didn't hit that 265 number. It was a little bit lower. It was 258 watts is my current FTP based on this. But regardless, I think I gave it my all. I might be able to do a little bit better if I were to try it again in a few days. But I'm not going to do that. What I really need to do is just get some long training rides in. Pelotonia is coming up in just a couple weeks. So I think the majority of my training is basically done. I just have to get out there and get some miles in just to keep myself acclimated to the bike, keep my pedaling style in, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. That's going to be about it. I guess I forgot to point out earlier in the video, if you look up there, you can actually see my target wattage, my current wattage. You can see my heart rate. Currently, it's 151 beats a minute. For the majority of this test, it was in the 130s. When I get up into the 150 beats a minute, that's when you can tell that I'm working pretty hard. When I'm out on the road, my goal is actually to keep my heart rate below 150. That's like high threshold for me. And then right below that 153 at the moment is my cadence. When you're riding and you're riding with as much efficiency as possible, you want that cadence to be like 85 to 95. I am a bigger guy. I have bigger leg muscles. I'm a little bit stronger than a lot of people. I can't keep that high cadence. If I keep my cadence too high, even without running up high power numbers, I get gassed out pretty quickly. So right here, keeping it about 80 is a pretty good spot for me. I don't know. This is where it's starting to get really juicy, really interesting. So I'm going to get out of the way for a moment and just let you hear the raw audio, and then I'll be back, and I might be back in a second to recap. I might just edit. I don't know. We'll see. So there you have it. That's a little bit of a taste of the pain that I go through when I do these kinds of things. I don't know, it's a really good test. It's kind of fun to do, and it's a good idea to get on, I don't know, every 3 months or so. Every 90 days is probably a good idea to kind of test to max out your level of fitness. Something like this, this is something that's really taxing on the body at the time. But afterwards, like today, I don't even feel like I had a workout yesterday. So I feel really fresh, good to go for my workout that I'm going to have this afternoon. And I know what my level of fitness is. I know that I'm on the right track. I know that the numbers that I've been pushing recently are the appropriate numbers. I'm a little bit let down that I wasn't able to beat my previous score. But I don't know. The one I had before was an estimate. The last time I did an FTP test was probably in January, and I think I got 235 when I did it in January. So as far as an actual test and not an estimate, I went from a 235 to a 258, which is a pretty good increase in fitness. I can tell you I feel a lot better on the bike. I'm riding a lot better. You could see that when I got up into the 300 watts there, that was very difficult. The other interesting thing is with the wattage that I'm putting out, I don't know necessarily how I compare to a lot of people. Compared to pros, like they're barely out of breath when they're pushing 300 watts. So it's incredible to know how hard that is for me and how easy it is for them to pedal that same kind of resistance. As far as people that I know, I'm actually pushing out some pretty good wattage. The problem I have is I'm a relatively big guy. You know, I'm 220 pounds at the moment. When you're 220 pounds and you're pushing out 250 watts, it doesn't move you along as well as someone that was, say, 150 pounds, like a lot of cyclists. Cyclists tend to be pretty small. So currently trying to lose a little bit of weight. I've lost about 10 pounds in the last few months. Went from 230 to 220. I would like to get down into like that sub 210, like right around 200 pounds. In order to do that, I have to really cut my diet hard. And while it's summertime, I'm not going to do that because I still want to be able to get out on the bike, out on the open road, and do some real rides. As long as I'm doing that, I have to be eating in order to perform. Over the winter, I think what I'm going to try to do is start cutting my diet down, and I'm going to have multiple weeks where I just ride at zone 2, that like comfortable all day pace. That's all I'm going to do. I'll do that 3 days a week, 2-hour sessions, and just go to the gym twice a week just to kind of keep up a little bit of muscularity, or just to keep my upper body in shape. If I can do that and reduce my calories, I should be able to get down to that 200 pound area. And my cycling stats, or my ability, or just whatever, my ability to ride should be greatly improved if I lose 20 pounds. That would be a tremendous goal for me. So I think that's what my goal is going to be going into the spring. Hopefully by March of next year, I'm down to 200 pounds. In order to do that, I'm going to have to dramatically reduce the amount of food that I'm eating. And I'm actually going to have to cannibalize some of the muscle that I'm carrying as well. Because if you saw, I'll go ahead and put a screenshot up there. This is me riding the bike with my arms and my upper body. That's not generally what cyclists look like. I'm gonna have to find a way to make some of that go away, because I'm carrying a significant amount of body fat, but I'm not the fattest guy in the world. So to lose that kind of weight, there's definitely some muscle that's going to be lost if I'm going to do it in a way that I can still perform athletically. You know, I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm not trying to just get my body fat incredibly low for a show, because those guys don't walk around at that weight all the time. I need to actually reduce the size of my body to become a better cyclist. That's my goal. But either way, I think I've rambled on probably too long. So I'm going to let you go. I thought this would be interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learn a little bit more about the smart bikes, the technology, and FTP, and how to do a ramp test, because that's really the purpose of this video. As for now, I'll get out of here. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.